Hello.
Hey, truckos.
Welcome to Trucks number 10,444.
How's it going? I'm Immortal Isaac.
I'm Brain Josh.
And we are... What are we doing today?
Hold on. We got... Remember a long time ago when we did the Hundo Trucks? And we had some questions we never got around to?
Multiple lifetimes ago.
Yeah, we've, We
finally ran out of things to talk about.
Exactly.
In the intervening millennia. And
so we're going to get to these backup questions. If any of these people are still out there...
I mean, that seems unlikely. There are not very many who are lucky enough to survive the various global extinction events that have happened in the intervening years. But
yeah,
we made it.
I laugh. It's nervous laughter.
We made it, so there's no reason to expect that some of the others might. Yeah, less special than we are, though they must perforce be.
Yeah. So first up, Kogan Serrano asks.
Kogan Serrano, a delicious Kogan Serrano
asks. How do I raise my landing gear? There we go. I do this every day. Of course, I know how to raise my landing gear.
He asks on Bob Dylan.
Do you remember Bob Dylan?
It's weird that he was sainted. I'll put it that way. Like,
yeah, that might have been
I forget which number Gregory it was, which pope it was, but like, I think he was just a big classic rock fan rather than. I mean, they said that like that a few of the things that he did really late in his life counted as miracles, but I don't think they do. I don't know. I think that Bobby is. It's weird because he is...
When he transitioned to doing dance music, I thought he'd kind of lost it.
Yeah, that's true. No, I mean, particularly the videos, like, with him obviously trying to be with it and up to the times when he was doing, like, this really heavy Death Grips inspired stuff at, like, the age of 80, 85. And this was after, like, Death Grips had already had that murder-suicide thing, and so it was in poor taste. But he was always willing to push boundaries.
Yeah, no. I got respect for him. I got respect for him as an artist. He's never been my thing particularly. My brother went through a Bob Dylan thing.
Oh, I mean, like, he was revered in my household. Oh, yeah? Like, my stepmom, rest her soul, was a huge fan of Bob's and had like all of his albums, and I never really understood why. But he was a clever dude. He's got some clever lyrics. And I think that you've got to respect a man who would write, and this is my mother, God rest her soul equally, used to sing this particular Bob Dylan song. You're an idiot, babe.
I don't know that one.
It's a wonder that you still know how to breathe.
That's pretty good.
That's Idiot Wind.
That's I mean, I've always enjoyed those kinds of lyrics, especially in folk music.
Yeah, it was weird. Like, we were out.
He did a real good cover of Hallelujah.
Did he?
Yeah.
Hallelujah,
the Leonard Cohen song, not the church music.
That strikes me as difficult to take.
I mean,
really it's not like Cohen's pipes are out.
It's in his electric guitar days.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So it's all rocking out.
There's an old movie about what's his face? I'm blanking on it. The guy, the famous black essayist.
I don't know.
The movie's called I Am Not Your Negro. James Baldwin, of course. And it's like a really serious movie about essentially the deaths of Emmett Till, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King. Oh, did you overshoot again?
Not only did I overshoot, but I hit the wrong button on my keyboard.
Are we in hyperspace now?
No, we're not. We're just miles away from our destination.
Oh.
200 kilometers away.
How long have we been doing this?
Still bad at parking.
Still bad at parking.
It might just be faster to engage Super Cruise at this point.
That seems likely. I think that, but anyway, so very serious stuff, like really, heart-wrenching stuff about our collective responsibility. And like, as we're talking about the deaths of these famous black men, like there's Bob Dylan singing about Emmett Till. And, you had to remember with Bob that there was a point where it was like he seemed like he was an actual revolutionary figure, like literally a revolutionary figure.
People held on to that for a long time. And remember when they made a movie where like he was played by Kate Blanchett and a little black kid and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, which seems like a hangover from the early part of his life, where he was the face of everything changing at once.
Right.
Which, of course, it turns out that what he wanted to be was a musician. And more or less, that's what he was.
But I like the anecdote about like the time he transitioned, the first time to electronics and started playing the electric guitar, and everyone thought it was the worst.
People screamed Judas. And Pete Seeger went and tried to cut the electrical power with an axe. Turns out he just wanted to be an artist.
Yeah.
And sometimes being an artist coincides with being political and engaged, and sometimes it coincides with chasing your own tail.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
Anyway, I think no one can say he was a bad artist.
That's true.
That's the conclusion.
He has some good words, and his Christmas album is amazing.
I once read a really bad short story about Bob Dylan becoming a kind of Steve Jobs figure.
Oh my God!
In the tech world,
I remember that. You showed me that.
It was
really bad.
I'd never encountered anything quite like it before.
Most science fiction is bad, and as we know now, extremely inaccurate.
Yeah.
Dark Veracity asks, if you were given a large budget and asked to put together some sort of major art project, a play, a movie, a classical dance performance accompanied by rap music, anything you want, what would you want to make? What would it be about? Of course we did, which is why we had the funds to prolong our lives to this extent. But
yes.
This question was asked before that. So, like, if I'm trying to harken back at the time what I would have done with unlimited resources, the kind of resources that we had for a period, and of course lost many times over, my old standby for this is that I wanted to make a stage show out of an album called Of Wars in Osteria by Fairyland, because the album, which is a classic, sort of Dragon Force style symphonic power metal album, but is heightened above that by its vocalist, a singer who is almost uniquely among power metal vocalists, a lady with enormous contralto pipes, and who has made everything that she's ever been a part of much better, including other bands like Dark Moor. This whole album was basically just generic swords and sorcery narrative with a lot of double kick drums. But I thought it sounded a lot like sort of the Christmas music that I really liked as a kid. And so I wanted to make a Christmas pageant out of this album where there would be people in hollyhocks and robes, or not hollyhocks, and holly and ivy and robes, and it would all be about bringing, it's one of those albums where they like particular words a lot. So light makes a lot of things, and spring coming again, and the king, and it would map really easily onto a solstice pageant. That's what I wanted. You'd need a really good main vocalist and a tireless drummer to pull it off. But that's what I would try to put together if I had it. How about you?
It's a hard question, right? An unlimited budget.
Yeah.
I think you and I generally find and have agreed in the past that the art, when you have all the resources you could ever want, is usually
not the ideal art.
Right.
It's restriction that does it, which is how we ended up inventing Mars Core, of course. Because there's not much you can do with what was available on Mars at the time.
I think if you'd asked me this at the time, I would have been interested. And of course, the way I made my fortune was by putting on that gallery show of my Instagram pictures.
Oh my God, the world was suddenly ready for that. After everything went to shit,
yeah,
people were ready for a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
So it's Josh is, I think,
but
just generally more minimalist.
Yeah,
which is why he's a brain now, and I'm still embodied.
It's good to just be a brain.
Yeah,
it saves a lot of trouble, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I feel like
you answered that to your satisfaction, or
no? I never will.
Yeah. There were a lot of. I would open a storefront in Manhattan, which would be unlocked and be full of nice things, and I would leave it completely unguarded.
Yeah, I would love to create a public space of some kind.
That would be my art, to just have people gradually realize that they could trash this place, and seeing how long it took them to do so.
In Manhattan of today, too, man. That they would have to wear the hazmat suit.
I know we're obviously, it's the undersea part that would have to happen in today, because that's where people who are rich still live.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Next question
Question
is,
2. If you and Isaac fought to the death, who would... Well, I have some material advantages here, but Josh, of course, has his many drones.
It's like Batman and Superman. It's about how much time there is to plan beforehand, right? If we were to just go at it right now, I wouldn't stand a chance.
That's clear. I could just knock your jar over.
Yeah.
And
I think this has always been true, in fact. This has been the power dynamic between us for our entire existences. However...
But if you were to go down your bat cave and come up with a strategy, you know that I don't have the patience for coming up with strategies. So you could probably suss out a way to defeat me.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, I won't object to that. I think that is in fact correct. Well, all right. Next question. Catafalcon asks, what do y'all think of the works of David Foster Wallace?
Isaac is straight negative on David Foster Wallace. I have mixed feelings on David Foster Wallace.
That's not entirely true. I harbor affection for brief interviews with hideous men.
That's a good book.
I think that
many of his short stories are great. I have not read Infinite Jest, even though I could do so in a microsecond, being a powerful brain and all.
Exactly. But even with our lives seemingly infinitely extended, there's still only sometimes you just want to relax.
Sometimes you just don't have patience for thinking about Infinite Jest.
Yeah, and it's like there are so many other pieces of media that I could cram into my ports. But I
like his short stories a lot. I think that more often than not, they're very good.
I think I was pretty high on him after reading brief interviews with hideous men, and then I read some of his nonfiction, and I just completely lost all patience with him because
I like some of his nonfiction. He's a bit.
It's so style over substance, and he is so free with making grand statements about things that he does not fully understand and has not researched.
Definitely.
And
but I think he's a good nonfiction author to assign to students. I'm gonna stand by that
as sort of a cautionary example.
Not that, but also he's an excellent stylist, and if you're a student who's struggling to figure out how to structure an essay in a way that's fun to read.
Yeah.
I think he's very good at that. He's very good at going on tangents, but having them all eventually loop back around. So
it's true. It's I just hate to encourage people to achieve that level of solipsism. There's something so arrogant about his footnotes.
But sometimes they're so funny. I don't know. I can't.
I think it's maybe a sense of humor thing.
Yeah, I can never be fully negative on him, but I recognize and understand all the objections people have. I'll probably if I ever read Infinite Jest, I'd probably dislike it. I don't know. Well, I have that feeling.
Never know. Yeah, unless you got to have a lot of affection for tennis, I think.
The next question is whether I'm hyped for the new Destiny update.
Oh, that's water under the bridge, I'm afraid.
Destiny 17, everyone knows that looks terrible. But at the time...
Can you believe they're still squeezing that particular fruit?
I know. Truly, it's not even the same. It's not even the same company that made all the good ones. The
really weird thing is that
Destiny 5 through 7 were made by Infinity Ward, and somehow that was just brilliant. But
yeah, no, they lost the sort of badness that made the affectionate badness that made Destiny 1 good, and then they found it again 4 or 5 games later, but then they lost it again. It's like the later seasons of The Simpsons now. People say that there's good things to be found in Simpsons seasons 250 through 294. But you gotta wonder what you could possibly get out of that setup after a certain point.
They really should just stop making all the old series. We should stop making trucks. Although so long ago we said we'd stop making it every week, and yet we've kept doing it.
I know.
Ever since.
I think it's just it's practically the only excuse that you and I have to spend any time together at this point. So.
But yeah, the you could tell that Destiny was going sour by the end of the first game. The very last update they released for Destiny 1, Age of Triumph, you could tell there was I still remember so clearly today the moment when they were doing a tease, a stream about the new features, and the community manager asked one of the developers, "So why do you love playing Destiny?" And his answer was, "I like playing Destiny because I get armor." And they just geared the whole thing. They made it so that the only way you could have a good challenge in PvE was by doing a raid, so you needed 5 friends or 5 randos. There was no longer any decently challenging single player or like solo queuable content.
It's amazing the things that stick with you, isn't it?
Yeah, it really, I loved that game so much.
I know, I remember.
We need more time, so I'm going to look for another mission. How long have we been at this? About 15 minutes. Okay.
We got what, one more question to go?
Time feels so meaningless.
We might not need.
You're right. One more question.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just. Maybe we'll just look at the view.
That seems reasonable. So, last question is from Katz. Listen to a speaker arguing in a way that implied that the domination of a type of voices limits the visibility of others. If so, how do minority voices gain visibility? Oh, I remember this one.
Yeah.
How do minority voices gain visibility? I've been using economic framework to consider this question. What problems do we notice with using that perspective on culture on either micro or macro levels?
So we've been thinking about this question for 5,000 years, and we still can't figure out why you decided to ask us this question.
That is a very good point. I mean, recent history has demonstrated that one way that minority voices gain visibility is by rioting, by setting huge swathes of the solar system on fire.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the peril of letting these conversations be one-sided over a long period of time, is that suddenly there will come a loud interjection from a quarter that you were not expecting it from, which will set the cat amongst the pigeons, as it were, if there were in fact cats or pigeons. But
what?
Huh? Yeah, no, you barely remember cats.
I've deprogrammed my ability to understand metaphor.
I mean, it's a waste, frankly. But yeah, no, I don't know why you think that I can answer this question.
The best. Okay, so let's try and get into the nitty-gritty here.
Yeah.
We've been using this. The asker has been using an economic framework to consider this question. The question of how do minority voices gain visibility? Mm-hmm. What problems do we notice with using that perspective? Well, you can't just use an economic model, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, for the same reason that you can't just use an economic model to discuss like income disparity and things like that.
Right, that didn't work.
Yeah, boy howdy. Because, it's like race does not make itself, or gender or whatever, does not just make itself felt through economic disparity. Like, it all boils down to status.
Yeah.
And, who you will automatically listen to and who your eyes will glaze over.
Right.
When they start to talk, who you will immediately condescend to or assume they don't know what they're talking about.
I think the best answer we can give, and also something which isn't addressed by that economic model, is just read what minority voices write. Listen to what they say.
It's like the visibility is, it's like that question is like, which is not the question that was asked. The question was not asked, how can you see more minority voices?
No,
like, how can minority voices be seen by more people?
To stretch the answer I just gave to answer the question as it was asked, you have to solve it in a cultural way too, which means we all have to do the work of internalizing, to broaden the culture as best we can.
Yeah, it's all just about like, give those voices extra space. Like, you don't need to have a one overarching metric to determine who's being ignored, because there are a lot of people who are being ignored for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people whose voices sometimes literally just make people uncomfortable by their very existence. And you know who they are because you can tell if you're uncomfortable,
Right.
And it's your job to not only make sure that you're listening to those people, but also to make sure that those people have what platform you yourself can give them, have access to that to the extent.
That was a fun 21st century roleplay. It's a good thing that we solved identity by making everybody robots and brains and making sex illegal.
I'm reading a book about that, actually, which is probably going to be talking about in my blog soon.
Oh, cool.
All right. I'll catch you all. I mean, whoever's still out there. If we didn't know who was listening to Trucks before, we absolutely don't know who's listening to Trucks now. But
thank you.
Thank you for listening to these broadcasts.
Thank you for finding this transmission out among the stars.
Are we going to just upload this one to a beacon and shoot it off out of the port?
That's how we've done the past few, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean,
it's
hard to gain a coherent fan base under those circumstances.
If there was an internet, I'd be able to get missions without having to dock at stations.
That's true. There's an old webcomic called Listening 11.75 Megahertz, which was essentially role-playing as a shortwave transmission. And a barely badly heard one at that. It was like this. The experience of reading this comic was like tuning your band and catching something up on the higher stream, which is completely inexplicable in number station. Ideally, that's sort of what we would like this trucks to be.
Yeah, man. All right.
On the higher bands.
A time capsule.
Over and out.